Thank you. I want to tell you a little bit more too about me before I actually get into my talk, because otherwise what I'm saying might mean nothing to you. One of the reasons why I'm very, very passionate about working with female entrepreneurs is because of a lot of the things that I learned in my past life. This life, not my past life. And one of the things, the studies that were emerging in international development was that when you give microfinancing loans and business mentorship to women in X community, and then you give the same amount of microfinance business loans to men and the same type of mentorship in X community, the communities that the women live in escape poverty 4 to 5 times faster than the communities, the mic's gone, than the men. And, thanks. It's not that men don't do amazing things when they make money. It's that women are so much more community oriented. They're so much more inclined to support not just themselves and their immediate family, but their neighbors, people that they pass on the street. And because of that, when women actually have access to their own economic resources, they have the ability to change the world. And I understand, as cocky as I like to be about sometimes about the type of impact that I have on the world, I also recognize that I'm still just one person. And I am very passionate about changing the story of not only the story told about women in entrepreneurship, but also changing the story about what diversity looks like, what access to resources looks like, and all that types of stuff, not just here in Canada, but around the world. And I've really come to realize I'm one person, and as ambitious as I am, I can only do so much alone. Therefore, by actually working with other women to empower them to grow their businesses doing something that they love and having them make their own economic resources means that I'm actually able to help change the story, not only of women in entrepreneurship, but also change the story of the world and make this world a better, more diverse place where people have more access to equality and to resources, to education, and most importantly, to their ability to make their own income. And for me, that's why you might hear me talking, not so much in my talk today, about making money. I am very passionate about making money, but I'm passionate about making money and helping other women make money because when women have power, they do really wonderful things with that power. And we just happen to live in a world where access to economic resources and money means you have more power. Therefore, while I'm talking through my talk today and while you're hearing all the other speakers today, I really want you to think about how your desire to grow your business and wanting to make a lot of money is not selfish. And I know that that's something that we can tell ourselves often. I've told myself that many times, that my desire to make millions of dollars means that I'm selfish, it means that I'm a bad person. But what I've come to really realize is that when I do make more money, when I do have more power, I'm able to do more good in the world and with that power. And so I just want to plant that seed in your minds as well, that if one of your goals is to change the world or even just change your family, make sure that people in your family have access to better education or better resources. You don't have to worry about, when your parents retire, that they're going to have to work for the rest of their lives because they can't afford to. Growing your business, believing in yourself and pushing yourself is not just for you. And that's why I love working with women, because you know deep down that it's not just for you. And so if you are passionate about making more money in your business, I really do want you to actually do it. Now I'll get to my actual talk. So my talk today is titled Failure, Self-Sabotage, and the Drive to Keep Going. One thing that I notice from being someone that is in the public eye, in the sense that people can see me on social media, they learn a lot about my life, they make all of these judgments as to who I am and what I do and what I'm capable of. And I'm sure all of you do that as well. If you take a minute right now to think about a hero of yours, someone that you really admire in business, potentially they're an entrepreneur or there's someone in a career that's built a career that you really admire. When you think about that person, you most likely just think about their successes, their wins, and their highlight reel. You potentially understand logically that they have faced adversity, and maybe if they've released a book or if they're like Ashley and they talk about it really openly, you understand what some of that adversity is. The problem though, when we hear other people's stories of their road to success, and when we look at where people are now and the people that we really aspire to be, we're at a disadvantage. And our disadvantage is that we only see one part of their story, but unfortunately, we know everything about our own story. In our own story, for sure, we've got some successes, we've got some wins, we've hit some milestones, but we also remember that really embarrassing, uncomfortable thing we said in grade 6 to a kid whose name we can't remember, but we still use as justification to make us feel uncomfortable in social situations because we're scared that maybe we're going to do that again. We're aware of every shameful thing we've ever done that we wish we could just erase from history. We're aware of every mistake, every test that we took that maybe we only put our name on. we didn't fill out the rest of it. And so because of that, we're in this position where when we look at everyone else in the world, even people we know in our day-to-day lives, we really only see a portion of their story, but we see so much of ours. And as women, we are so inclined to focus much more on the negative aspects of our story than we are the positive. One of the things, though, that I want to talk about today, not only in actually sharing my negative sides of my story in hopes that you guys get a better idea of what that whole story looks like, but I also want to instill in you this idea that you don't have to be ashamed about those things, because we all do it all of the time. And for me, I'm sharing my story with you in part for you, so that you can hopefully learn from some of my mistakes, or you can resonate or see yourself in my story. But I'm also sharing my story for me, because the more that I get up here and I talk about the things that I wish did not happen in my business, and you're only gonna get a few of them because we don't have 6 years, so we'd be here a long time if I had told you everything. But if you wanna know more, you can obviously tell me. But I wanna share my opposite side of the story with you as well, because for myself, the more I share that story, the more I bring that darkness into the light, the less hold it has on me, the less I can feel guilt and shame about that really embarrassing thing I said in grade 6. And the more I can start to recognize that that's just a part of my story. It's a little mark on my way to where I am now, and I am happy with where I am now, and I'm very excited about where I'm going to be in the future. And the more I'm willing to share those parts of my story that I wish weren't there, and the more you're willing to share those parts of the story that you wish weren't there, the less that those things hold you back, the less that those things become justifications as to why you can't do things, and you start to realize that those things actually are what make you really awesome, and that it's those things that actually have brought you to where you are now. And if you stopped beating yourself up over them, you'd actually start to see the beauty in the lessons that you've learned from them and how they've helped you become the person you are today. And I know that because that is very truly how I feel about some of the things I wish I could erase from my business history. But then at the same time, I realized that in erasing that, I would essentially be erasing who I am today. I would potentially not be on stage with you. I would potentially not be running a 6-figure coaching business, be an international best-selling author, have a podcast, get to travel the world with my partner and go on cool retreats and meet cool people and work remotely wherever I want. I wouldn't get to live the life that I have been dreaming of and now have the fortune of actually living if I erase those things from my history. There is a saying that I really love. Some of you might know it. Courage isn't always a loud roar. Sometimes it's that little voice that says, I'll try again tomorrow. I know for me that is the definition of courage. It's easy for us to be courageous and to say, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna build a business, I'm gonna start my speaking career, I'm gonna write that book, or I'm gonna ask for that promotion, or I'm gonna finally leave my government job and pursue something I love. And it's easy in those moments because we're excited, we're pumped up. For anyone I'm a competitive athlete, so you know right before you go into the game, it's really easy to be super excited. But when you actually get on the field and you look at how big the other people are, I played rugby, and you see how big those other people are, that's when you start to get scared. And it's in those moments, that little voice that says, it's okay, like, we've got this. And it's the same thing in business and in life. It's easy for us to be courageous when we're excited and we go into it. And it's really hard for us to tell ourselves, after a long day where we thought we would be celebrating, we thought we would be opening a bottle of champagne, celebrating with our friends and family about this milestone or this big win, and instead we're grieving because we became nowhere close to hitting that milestone that day. And in fact, that day we failed. And it's that little voice on those days that says, to me at least, it's okay, Lana, we're gonna try again tomorrow. That's the reason I get to be where I am today. It's not those big, loud roars of confidence that pushes me out there into the world to do the big things. It's that little voice that tells me it's okay to drop the ball, it's okay to fail. What really is important is to keep going. Again, I want you to think back to that person you thought about earlier, that person that you really aspire to be, this person that you really admire in your life that maybe has accomplished something that you want. And I want you to remember that that person got to where they are. That person has accomplished the things that they've accomplished. Not by grand acts. And sometimes, yes, writing a book or doing things like that. But they are where they are because every single day they woke up and they made a choice. And the choice that they made was, today I'm going to put myself out there. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I might fail, and maybe I do, but that's okay. And they made that choice every single day over and over and over and over and over again until they ended up where they are today. And it's the same thing for you. Every person that you admire, and maybe for some of you that person is me, I'm very human, and you can ask my partner afterwards. She will be more than happy to remind you that I'm human, and that every other person that you really admire and aspire to be, but potentially are putting on a pedestal and telling yourself that you can't be that person because that person has innate skills or qualities or resources that you don't have. And I want you to recognize that that's not true. We're all human, we all have flaws, but we all have this beautiful power inside of us. And the people that you aspire to be, they just made that choice to believe in themselves and to put one step in front of the other every single day, try again, sometimes fail, sometimes win, and get to where they are now. In my business, I'm going to list off like a few major failures for you, and then I'm going to go into depth for some of them. And if you want to know more about any of them, because maybe it's something that's going on in your life right now, please feel free to ask me afterwards. I'm an open book in talking about why I tried something and it blew up in my face. So one is that in my first year of business, I was still running my business as a side hustle. My first year of business, I only made $5,000. And for some people, when running a side business, that might actually be a lot, and that's really awesome. For me, though, that was not what I wanted. I'm an ambitious person. I thought maybe I'd make like $1 million my first year. That's how I'm a very naive and optimistic person. Sometimes it serves me well, sometimes it doesn't. So $5,000 really wasn't what I wanted. There's another time when I quit my day job. My partner and I had just bought a home. I also want to preface, we had just bought a home. I quit my job within 2 weeks of purchasing that home without consulting her, because I quit on a whim. And she was very supportive, but the deal was, I still have to make up my end of the finances, the money, and I have to make sure that I'm making enough to pay our bills, pay our mortgage, and continue our lifestyle. And I said, you know what, I can do that. I see people start coaching businesses all the time. This is totally something that I can do. Therefore, when I was in this situation where I had 30 potential client calls in under 30 days, having a background in fundraising, which is essentially sales, and experience in phone fundraising, so talking to people on the phone about money is not something that I'm uncomfortable with. Having those 30 conversations and not having one single person sign up was devastating. It was a devastating blow to my ego because this was supposed to be something I was good at. It was a devastating blow to my dream. Is this a sign that I'm actually not cut out to be a coach? Is the reason no one signed up with me not because I'm not good at sales, but because I'm actually a really shitty coach, and they all figured that out on the call? And maybe this thing that I've dedicated my life to, quit my job for, told everyone in my life that I was going to do, maybe I actually don't have what it takes. Not to mention, obviously, the financial stress and struggle that comes with that, because I was planning on signing at least 5 of those 30 people and having them be coaching clients of mine. Therefore, I was also in this situation where not only was I emotionally defeated, but I was very stressed about figuring out how am I actually going to pay my bills, and how am I going to go to my partner who has believed in me and tell her that not only did I let her down, but I've also put her future and her life in jeopardy as well, because our finances are connected. Another time, I went to launch an online community course, like membership group program, which in and of itself is probably part of my problem, because if you can't articulate the thing that you're offering people, they might not understand why they should sign up. But I had, at that time, like figured out the one-on-one coaching stuff. I had a really nice client roster, but I kept meeting all these women who I wanted to work with, but who couldn't afford to work with me one-on-one. They didn't need that much attention or they didn't have the resources, but they still needed support, and I wanted to give it to them because I do believe in helping women grow their businesses. This was my solution. I convinced somebody else to take time away from their friends and family and help me build out this program, and I promised this person that it would make them a lot of money. When we launched the program, we were supposed to have a goal of 30 people register, and because it was a membership, we were gonna pilot it for 6 months, and the idea would be every month about 5 to 10 people would sign up. We launched it, 5 people signed up, one of whom was my aunt. So I'm not quite sure if that counts. I think that was like, I believe in my niece, so I'm gonna sign up with her. And then to make it worse, the 6 months following that, we didn't have one person sign up. Months later, decide to reformat this whole thing. We realized, okay, we had the right idea, how we launched it wasn't right, all this stuff. We reformatted it as a course. We launched the course. The first course launch goes great. We hit our minimum target goal. We didn't quite hit our stretch goal, but that's okay because we didn't know anything about launching an online program. I was new at the time to online marketing and figuring out that whole thing. So we were really proud of ourselves. We made our goal, financial goal, and therefore the next launch, the person that I had launched it with, she had just had a baby, and so I was gonna launch it by myself, which was totally okay because she's the back-end marketer. I'm the face of the business, I'm the face of the course, I'm the one that does all of the selling and marketing anyway, so this is totally okay. Last time we got about 23 students, so having a goal of 30 seemed very realistic because I learned lessons, we did well, but I also knew what could be improved on. I launch it, 3 people sign up. 2 of those 3 people are one person technically because they co-run a business together. And that one, to be quite honest, that was actually in October. So some of the things that I'm talking about happened years ago and some of them happened recently. And the reason I want to share these things with you is because when I talk to people who are watching my business from afar and who work with me, they don't see these things happen. And therefore what they do is every time they do see a success that I have, they do see a win that I have, they feel that pushes me further away from where they are. They use that as to justify why they'll never actually be able to become me or run a business that it is that I'm running. When in reality, I have this whole closet full of proof that we are more alike than they think. The problem is we just don't openly talk about those things because it sucks, because it's shameful. And I'm a business coach. So people come to me to help them grow their businesses. So there's this added layer of if I share this with people, are they gonna think that I'm an incompetent coach? Are they not going to trust me to be able to build their business? And cue all of that negative internal dialogue that we all do when we do anything that we deem less than perfect. What I want to talk about though with those 5 failures, and again, I have more, but for all of those things, I do also have this beautiful pile of successes and wins. I'm super proud of my business. I'm right on track with where it is that I want to be. Therefore, these things, they're not actually skeletons in my closet. Again, they're just part of my story, part of my process. And if I were to wipe any of those from my history, I'd probably be taking away some huge milestone or success that I actually was able to accomplish because of that. The thing with failure though, which I always find ironic, because we all know that it's avoidable, but we spend so much time trying to avoid it. And I'm gonna get to this in a little bit because there actually is a way for you to avoid failure in a sense, but it's not in the way that you think. The reason though, we really need to take out our failures or those dark parts of our history that we really wish weren't there and bring them into the light is also because there are so many lessons to be learned. And I don't just mean lessons to learn, we all understand that we learn from failure, mostly because when you fall down and you get hurt, you tell yourself, I'm not doing that again. And you learn from that. But there's something deeper. In all of those examples that I gave you, I could easily externalize to you why those things happened. Facebook algorithm change. I didn't understand marketing enough. At the beginning with growing my business, I think someone was talking about it earlier. Yeah, you were talking about it earlier about, I didn't know how to actually be an entrepreneur and run a business, but I did know how to do coaching. And this was before I became a business coach. So there's a lot of things that I could use to justify why those failures happened. And I need to do that because that's where I learned the very tangible things about how to create a better marketing plan, or learning about algorithm changes in social media, learning about outsourcing and hiring. And those are all very analytical, very tactical things to do that I encourage you to do that I did. However, if I don't externalize, and if I also don't isolate all these incidences, because I could also do that. I could say that all of them happened in isolation, and so the lessons learned are just confined to that one situation. But I have a question for you. What's the common denominator in every single one of those situations? Yes, me. I'm the common denominator in every single one of those situations, which means that they didn't happen in isolation. And which means if there's a common thread as to why these things are happening, it's something that I'm doing. It's not something that's happening to me. It's not because I don't understand or lack resources or skills. It's because I'm doing something. And what I realized in every single one of those failures, in every failure that has ever occurred, not just in my business, but in my life, there's a common thread. And that thread is my uncanny ability to self-sabotage. And it's hard to see at first. It's really hard to see. And part of the reason it's hard to see is because, one, we don't know to look for it. And two, when you do know to look for it, you don't want to find it. Nobody likes admitting that they're the thing that keeps getting in the way of accomplishing their goals. Nobody likes admitting that, like me, right before I'm the most likely to get something is also the time that I'm the most likely to decide to burn it to the ground. My two most prevalent forms of self-sabotage were, one, my fear of being seen, my fear of actually putting myself out there. Because when I do that, I open myself up to judgment, to ridicule, and I also open myself out to failing in front of people and people saying to me, I told you so. I open myself up to every person that came into my life before starting my business saying things like, well, who does Lana think she is? Why does Lana think she could start a coaching business? Oh my God, a business coach? Lana, you've never run a business in your life. What do you know? And because of that, what was happening in the situation when I first launched my business, in the situation of the online masterclass thing, and in the situation of my course launch that didn't go well in October, that was the main driving force behind it. I had all the skills, all the resources, and I know how to launch and sell programs, launch and sell myself. And I knew that before as well. The problem was I was so afraid of what would happen if I really put myself out there. What if I really gave it my all and it didn't come to fruition? What if I put myself out there and people didn't sign up again because they thought I was a phony, or they found out that I actually don't know what I'm doing? Or what if I start getting judged? People talking behind my back. I don't want my uncle who has no idea what I'm doing in my business to give me his opinion on what it is that I'm doing at Thanksgiving dinner. And for all of those reasons, I decided that my dreams and the things that I wanted for my life weren't important, and that it was more important for me to give in to the demands of other people that in reality, no one's saying those things, and if they are, I actually don't care. I put my dreams, my ability to not only financially provide for myself and build my business, but feel really good about what I was doing. I decided to put that on hold because I was scared of being seen. And I know that that is a very prevalent theme in not only my life, but in the lives of my clients. It's the number one reason why I will give somebody their own marketing strategy that we have crafted for them, for their market, based on what their skills are. And they still won't do it. And I laugh when they come to me because they're always like, Lana, I just don't know. I just don't get why I'm not able to do it. And I'm all like, I know, don't worry. It's because you have a fear of being seen. And then we start looking at that and we start digging through that. And once we move through that, just like me, they're able to shine. The second form of self-sabotage that's the most prevalent, which I already alluded to, is this fear that I have, where again, I'm just about to get the very thing that I've worked so hard for. So for me, that would really be the 30 calls in 30 days. There's no reason why I shouldn't have been able to sign on those 5 people. But I was so afraid of realizing that maybe I didn't have what it took to actually be the person that got to live out my dream. And being so afraid of realizing that about myself, I decided, you know what? If I burn it to the ground, that's better than someone else burning it to the ground. But it really isn't. Because no one was going to burn it to the ground. I've always had all of the power and all the control. It was always up to me. And I see this theme come out in other aspects of my life, in my personal life. Again, always that moment right before I'm about to get the thing that I've wanted so badly, the thing I've been working so hard for, I also become so overwhelmed and so anxious. And I ask myself, do I really want this? Is this really what I want for my life? Maybe I should just quit and go do a 9-to-5 job and have someone tell me what to do all of the time and not have to have the stress and the anxiety and overwhelm and the pressure that comes with that. There is a lot of joy and happiness when we get to sit in our homes on our couch with our coffee and we're journaling and we get to envision this grand life for ourselves, and it feels really great. It's really scary though to actually be at a point where you realize that you could have it, because that's overwhelming and that's scary. Again, what if you don't have what it takes to live out that dream? What if people find out that you're an imposter? What if you do it and you don't like it? And there's all these what ifs, all these what ifs, all these what ifs. And in all the self-sabotaging, it's always because of a what if. And the reason why I'm proud of the fact that I did those things is because it taught me so much about myself. And it allows me to know that in the future, when I'm launching things or when I'm talking to someone, maybe it can be as simple as I'm speaking to someone who I know is going to be my future mentor, who can open doors for me and help me move into a better speaking career, or help me write a book, or help me get a consulting gig that I want. I know that as soon as I get their card and they tell me, Lana, follow up with me, that I'm gonna go through a moment where I tell myself, maybe I don't need to follow up with them. I'll try and talk myself out of it. And because I know that I'm going to do that, I'm able to set up safety nets to prevent myself from ruining my ability to do the things that I want. It gives me the power to understand that sometimes I can't trust myself to create that safety net. Therefore, I have to ask other people to show up for me. I know for my personality type, I have a hard time showing up for myself. But if even one person is waiting and expecting me to show up, I'm going to be there bright and early, ready to give it my all. Therefore, I make sure that if I'm going into a situation where I feel like maybe I'm going to try and burn it to the ground, I make sure that people are there to show up. I make sure that my clients are expecting things from me. I've hired a team of people, not only like my own coaches and my own mentors who make sure that I have things done on a certain time, but I also tell my partner when I'm doing things. I have a team of people that work with me. They can't get their work done unless I do my work first. Because I know these things about myself, I'm able to create all of these safety nets throughout my business and throughout my life to make sure that if I can't trust myself to keep moving forward towards my goal, at least I know I have people around me who will. And there's no shame in admitting that sometimes I have a hard time showing up for myself. I am a very positive, very ambitious, very hardworking person. And so if I struggle with these things, I know that other people do too. The problem is that we suffer with those things in silence versus bringing those things out into the open. That's why I really recommend that you even look through some of your biggest failings, potentially failures that you're also using and holding on to as justification as to why you can't move forward on a goal of yours. Because you did something a few years ago that in your mind is proof that you're never going to be able to do this other thing. And instead of using that to shame yourself, I want you to ask yourself, what's the common theme? What's the common denominator? Is there an underlying thing of self-sabotage potentially going on? Because in my opinion, almost every failure that occurs in our life is directly correlated to some undercover form of self-sabotaging that's manifesting. And we see it sometimes. Sometimes that is also just being over egotistical and over cocky and thinking we can do it all ourselves. That's a form of self-sabotage too, because deep down you know you need help, you're just too scared to ask. Where the drive to keep going comes in, after all of those my failures, is also recognizing that, again, yes, while failure is inevitable, it's also kind of avoidable. And I understand that that's like a paradox. The definition of failure to some people is the opposite of success. So if failure is the opposite of success, success is when you've reached your final destination and you've achieved the thing that you set out to achieve. Another definition for failure is not meeting your desired outcome or objective. And in both of those definitions of failure, there's a really important key that you can actually use to hack. So that the next time that you fail, you can make yourself feel better and be like, that wasn't actually a failure at all. And to help you see what that is, because I like sports, I'm gonna use a sports analogy. Who here has ever played basketball? Okay, and if you've never played basketball, I'm sure you played a sport, but most people understand basketball. If the game's just starting and I walk onto the court and within the first play or two, I take a shot and I miss and say it hits the backboard or hits the rim, whatever, but it does not go in. Is that a failure or is that just a missed shot? It's a missed shot. And the reason it's a missed shot is because we understand that the game's not over. The only way that if I take that shot and it actually is a failure is if it doesn't go in the net, I walk off the court, I pack up my bag, and I decide never to play basketball again. Then it's a failure. But otherwise, it's just a missed shot in a continuous game that I'm playing. And in reality, if I'm playing in a league, when that game's done, even if we lose, that's not actually the end of it. We have a whole season ahead of us. And when that season ends, if I'm committed to improving as a basketball player, another season starts up. And it's always about growing and innovating and getting better. And so every missed shot is not a failure. Every missed shot is an opportunity for me to learn more about myself and how I show up while playing that game. And that's the same thing in business and in life. You can't actually fail at anything unless you decide that that was your end destination. For me, every single failure that I listed stung and it hurt, and there was definitely a lot of tears that followed with those results. But where my drive to keep going comes from, why I love that little voice in my head that says, it's okay, try again tomorrow, is because none of those were actually end destinations. All of those were benchmarks. Little things that I can use to help me calculate if I'm on the right path or if I need to readjust. And even if I decide to close up shop and stop my coaching business, which I have absolutely no intention of doing, but even if I did do that, that isn't also my end game. My end game would be, the only reason I'd be doing that is because I found something else that I really love that I'm gonna pursue instead. And so this business becomes not a success or a failure, again, just a benchmark that I can use to keep calculating as I navigate through life. When you look at failure through that lens, it gives you power because you start to become aware of the fact that you don't have to fear failure in the first place. It's just a benchmark. It's just a learning opportunity. You don't have to beat yourself up about it. And if you choose to beat yourself up about it, please at least have it be productive. Ask yourself, did I miss that shot because I get really nervous? When I go to shoot, did I miss that shot because the player was too big in front of me? Did I miss that shot because I released the ball too early? There's a lot of little things that we can do and analyze and look at. How can I improve? How can I get better? But we can only do those things if we're not wallowing in the defeat that we missed the shot in the first place. And the problem is that as women, we are taught to wallow. We are taught to be perfect. We're not taught to be brave. And so because of that, we are often taught that our end objective is to get married and have kids. That's pretty much it for us. Everything else is kind of something that exists in our life, but the most important thing is getting married, having a husband. Having a wife doesn't count. So I've already failed. Getting married, having kids. And so because of that, we're also raised and we're socialized to have this really narrow view about what makes us important, where our value comes from. What happens if you decide you don't want to have kids, if you don't want to be married? What happens if your career is more important to you than your family? You become shamed for it. People around you don't understand. And that brings us back to these self-sabotaging tendencies, because then we're afraid to put ourselves out there. We're afraid to be seen as this powerful force that we know that we are, because we feel that other people are going to question us, they're going to judge us. But really, we're afraid that we're going to question us, that we're going to judge us. That's why it's so important for us as women, but just as people in general, to decide that we want to be brave instead of perfect, to embrace failure, to recognize that there is no end game also. One day we're just going to die and that's going to be it. Yeah, that's it. There's no tallying, there's no scoreboard. That's just it. So you might as well make sure that while you're playing the game, while you're going through life, you're enjoying yourself, you're doing things that light you up, that encourage you, that make you feel like you have a purpose, that excite you when you have to get out of bed, that make Monday mornings still Monday mornings, but not as bad. You're the only one, though, that can do that. You're the only one that can decide that you're going to stop focusing on your failures, stop self-sabotaging, stop coming up with all of these reasons, a long list of reasons as to why you're not capable, why you don't have what it takes. Or you can decide that you do have what it takes. And that even if you're unsure about where it is within inside of you, you still know that there's just this little part of you deep down inside at the end of a really, really long day that says, try again tomorrow. Because we all have that voice. And what I want to leave you with, I always want to leave people with a lot of stuff, but I believe in you, and I see each and every single one of you. I was at a concert last week, and the person on stage said something really, to me, was quite profound. And she said, I am here on stage because of you. You're not here to see me, I am here to see you. And I see each and every single one of you. And if you think that I'm speaking to you, if you think that I'm looking at you, I am. Because you are important, and you showed up for yourself. And she was talking about how concerts is where people go to let things go. Conferences are where people come to be inspired. You showed up today for you. I am here because of you. If you guys didn't show up, I would just be some weirdo alone in a room talking to herself. And that's the thing that I want you to recognize. Like, you already have the ability to show up for yourself. You already have the ability to put yourself in uncomfortable situations. Lots of people don't like networking. You're already doing more for yourself and for your future and your dreams than most people ever will. By believing in yourself, even if it's just a little bit, and even if it was just to buy a ticket today. Because that's all you need. And tonight when you go to bed, I want you to tell yourself, that was my first step, and tomorrow I'm going to try again. I'm going to try something new. And the next night, you're going to say the same thing to yourself over and over and over and over again, until you're the person that your idol or your hero comes up to in an event or meets in public and goes, oh my God, Megan, I can't believe it's you. Because that's possible for you. You can become the people that you aspire to be, because the people that you aspire to be are just like you. And I want you to remember that courage is not that loud roar. It is that little voice at the end of a really long day that says, I'll try again tomorrow. Thank you.